What we keep hearing and reading is that, in fact, banks would love to be lending more, but the demand sometimes isn't there. What trends are you seeing in that now?
All right. Let me just give a little bigger picture first. The things that aren't changing, technology is just driving change everywhere. It has been for centuries, and it'll continue. It's faster. Talent, always a fight for talent. The market, if you actually look at the growth in the market that drives banking services, is growing like this. Right. I mean, if you talk about number of multinationals, amount of trade, GDPs of the world, high net worth of the world. Right. So forget people overreact to the vicissitudes of the market. Right. The real growth is like this. And then, the hard thing for us is to manage through the vicissitudes of the market. And when you look at credit, you got to look at everything, public and private. It's wide open, particularly in the United States. I think there's some pressure in Europe, but the United States is wide open. I think people can get credit in China, et cetera. So the main thing, the real difference to me, and I think I'm going to say it's a broad issue and then it's very narrow. Government's role has changed dramatically since the crisis, kind of globally. Right. And governments, and the best example is Europe, where, to me it remains to be seen how that's all going to sort out. What's the role of government? What promises can they make? What can they accomplish? What can't they accomplish? What have they overpromised, which is becoming common? And then specifically for banks, it's both, I would say, regulation, but also the world is managing interest rates in a way that hasn't really happened since World War II. The central banks of the world, well, the United States Central Bank set the 10-year bond rate. Right. And it was 2.5% for 8 or 9 or 10 years. Right. And so that's unique. I mean, we're all struggling with it's a different world when central banks are managing interest rates. Right. The market still sets rates for a lot of different things, but a lot of being set by central banks too.
Right. And so the question everyone would like to hear your views on is, what do you expect to happen there? I mean, they're so close to zero, rates are so close to zero almost globally that it is an extraordinary situation. When is it going to change?
So let me start by saying, but I think what the Fed did and some of the other central banks, it worked. Right. So I give them credit. Right. They didn't know exactly during the crisis. We had a crisis. We need to make changes. But, America's growing. Home prices are up. Asset prices are up. The GDP is going 2% plus. It should be more. The world, China's been growing, and you can argue it should be more. There's this issue about removing it. Right. And, obviously, first of all, I think we all should hope for a normalization of interest rates. Right. That's a good thing. The question is, what are the circumstances when it happens? Right. So, to me, the bookends are, it's really working. America's growing at 3 or 4%. We're adding jobs all the time. Everyone's making money. Prices are up. And the Fed, stops buying, maybe even starts selling. You're not going to care. It'll be okay. There's huge liquidity out there. The circumstance where you're in a sustained recession with, possibly with inflation, like stagflation, well, it's a disaster. In any event, I think you should expect, as we go back to normal, it's going to be scary and it's going to be kind of volatile. And everyone's going to be looking at every word the Fed says and trying to. Markets, remember, if you told the markets A, B, and C are going to happen, they will happen a lot differently than you expect. Right. So there will be volatility. After World War II, which is the only example I know of, it wasn't until like 1950 where they let 10-year bond rates go. There was a lot of volatility. Right. Markets were up and down. GDP was up and down, but growth took off after World War II.